to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Hello, Candice.
Hi, Ken.
How are you?
Doing? I'm dandy. Thanks.
Are you feeling super zen right now?
I'm feeling more zen, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you did sauna and then float? The whole thing was like an hour and a half. You emailed me a couple hours ago.
I did. I've just been super busy lately, a lot going on, and really wanted to show up for you with a nice, focused, grounded, lucid mind. So
You do sauna first?
I'll do the sauna first. You get
Okay.
a great, detoxifying infrared sauna session followed by the float. It's a beautiful combo.
The one of two times that I floated was at your company.
So you have floated with us.
I floated with you. It was in August, and I had only floated one other time.
Where did you float the first time?
It was somewhere in Nashville. I'm not. I don't remember the name, and I'm not entirely sure they're in business anymore. I'm not 100% sure. I know it wasn't Float Nashville or some of the others, but it was a little bit of a hole in the wall place, and it was an isolation tank.
Right.
And it had like the entrance on it basically looked like a big metal coffin that you climbed in on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit claustrophobic, and I didn't know exactly what to expect and everything. So when I got your unlimited sauna pass in August, and you include, kindly enough, a free float in there.
Yeah.
So I floated at your location in Belmead area, and I mean, I loved it. I loved it. I was not claustrophobic at all. Your tanks are a little better. And it was just spacious.
Well,
but
floating's really evolved. I mean, including with the equipment. That's something that I had really observed, when I was considering opening up a studio that would include floating. And, the early float centers, and all my respect to them, because they are the ones who really pioneered to be able to bring floating to Nashville or to other cities. But as I observed, tend to be a little more old school. And I say that respectfully. But the equipment has really evolved. I mean, just like cars and other types of equipment, you can really have state-of-the-art floats that have all these different customizations. And I kind of took a contrarian view or approach a little bit with floating. While sensory deprivation is definitely has a lot of merits to it, and certainly research behind it to really help reduce anxiety levels, stress, helps with depression. You could go on and on. But not everyone wants to be sensory deprived.
Right.
I mean, we don't even use those words really in our studio. I've come up with other language, like you can go baby in the womb, which to me just sounds a lot more nurturing and loving. And, but frankly, who am I to say like how you should experience your float?
Yes.
I have a client, he likes to float to Led Zeppelin, and it just makes him feel like he's ready to like rock the world afterwards.
I believe it.
And I'm just like, awesome, Bob, like go rock it. You know, if lights are on and music's going and that's what makes you happy, and then great, score, win for everyone. Anyway, yes, there are those types of floats, but ours are different. Yeah.
Yeah, yours is like a very big, how would you describe it? Very big bathtub with a top that pops up, almost like a cover on, I've seen these covers on pickup trucks where it's like a light plastic cover with a hinge and the whole cover just flips up. It's
a pod, and our different float centers even have different types of equipment as well. We use Superior float tanks.
That's
based
the brand.
Based on my research, that was really the top equipment out there. It's the same ones that the New England Patriots have. Tom Brady has one in his own home.
That brand or that tank?
Correct.
Wow.
But even Superior float tanks now has evolved to like having a couple of different variations. You can have like a float room. So it's like this door that you open into the wall, and then you just like go into this float room where it's not going to have the lid that can either be open or shut. But the floats that we have are, or at least in our Belmead studio, it's in Cool Springs where we have another studio. It's a pod, so it's about 7'1" in length. The water's 95 degrees and almost 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So you float effortlessly.
That is so much salt. I was in the Dead Sea only one time, and I could float in the Dead Sea. I think basically everyone can, and I can't really float in swimming pools. But if anyone's wondering, you don't have any trouble floating out. No one does, right? I mean, with that much salt in it, you easily float.
Yes.
No one's sinking in this thing.
No one sinks. That would be a PR crisis.
But
I'd be pretty mortified.
Right.
1,000
No,
I mean,
pounds.
some of our, we get the Titans players. I mean, big dudes who are floating. And the Titans, one of our first clients, I guess I'm kind of name dropping here, but is the
You're allowed to.
Taylor Luan. He play. I don't even watch football, but
Taylor Luan. He's a big
like
old
one of
boy.
the biggest dudes I've ever seen, and he was one of our first clients.
No way.
And and I was just like, well, if that big boy can float, truly anybody can. But we host. We have a partnership with the Vanderbilt basketball team, and but anyway,
Do they not have tanks at their own sporting facilities?
I was told that they ended up getting float tanks.
Okay.
Recently, we have been getting some Titans players, so
Really?
I don't know what if the floats are still available to them or because of everything that's going on with COVID. I mean, there's maintenance, of course, to the floats.
Sure.
Float water, though, is already inherently antiviral, which some people may not know. I mean, one with that much salt, salt is one of the most natural, hygienic minerals there is. They call it the Dead Sea for a reason, because nothing can live in that high concentration of salt. But beyond that, of course, we use food grade hydrogen peroxide, UV lights, ozone. So it's truly just the most sanitary water there is.
So I am curious, what is the science behind it? Because when I floated with your company, I don't know, a month ago, I felt high for probably 2 or 3 hours afterwards. Like no joke, like legitimately felt high. This happened a few times with sauna, which we'll talk about too, of course, but because I have had mood changes with sauna too. Like a couple of times I was coming in not having the best day, hit sauna 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and 45 minutes later, you just feel better. Like your state of mind changes, but not like the float. The float was, I was in there. Your guy let me in. He let me stay a few minutes extra in there.
Great.
And
we like to be generous.
Oh man, the time passed so fast. I went with no music, no light.
Yeah.
And either did or almost did fall asleep. But I don't meditate. I would like to more. It's hard for me to sit still and meditate.
Yeah,
but something about being in that tank, it was not hard to lay in there and just chill, and the time passed really quick. And no joke, when I got out for a few hours, because I remember telling Mariana later on when I was making dinner that you just felt, I don't know how else to describe it, you just kind of felt really good. Like I even felt a little bit high. Is that the salt or what is that?
I think it's a few different qualities, that's happening with you when floating. Well, I will share too, it's interesting. Sometimes people, it's feedback that I'll hear really often, and people will say to me, oh, I couldn't possibly float. I'm really a type A personality. It's so hard for me to relax. I'm like, actually, that's who floating best serves is people who have a really hard time relaxing. And guess what? I'm one of those people too.
Yeah.
And that's why floating really works for me, is because I have to surrender in this space. I can't reach for a phone. I have workaholic tendencies. We have 4 children at home. I have to surrender to the space. I have no other choice but to let go and let be. And for other people maybe who are also like me, I feel like my mind never stops. It's just constantly going, for better or for worse. You know, I'm just very active and just always have a gazillion ideas and thoughts that are running through my mind. And so it's very hard to calm it at times. And floating, I find it really calms the clutter. It is, as the infrared sauna detoxes your body, I find that the floating really helps detox my mind and just to be still. We are so inundated with stressors in our lives. I mean, look at the way that we live our lives. It's just nonstop going, combined with all the technology that just didn't exist before. So we are just pounded with tons of stimuli that are happening all the time. And we get overburdened mentally. And floating is just one of those environments and is a practice that can just really help quiet that noise. And I find that when I quiet the clutter and quiet the noise in my mind, it really just helps it does feel like a big weight has lifted, that you could then feel more high or elevated, and really you're feeling liberated because all of that mental clutter and noise is tiring. It's exhausting. It's experienced as stress, which just depletes us in many ways. So we have to restore or kind of brain dump once in a while. We'll refill it back up the next day.
Yeah.
But that just to create that balance, especially for people who are really living a nonstop go life. And floating for me has been my path to meditation.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's totally been that's what you're doing when you're in there.
Yeah.
You don't have to be sitting cross-legged.
Right.
You're lying down and you're weightless, and that is a path of meditation. That's an experience of meditation. And what's really cool is that it is a practice, and that the more that you do it, you see how that grows into a meditative practice, which then transcends into other aspects of your life outside of the float. So I see how my float practice has really transcended and impacted me as a leader in business, as a wife, as a parent, in so many different facets of my life. And thank God to having had a practice through floating, to have been able to really persevere through COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope everyone has a practice of some sort to navigate these challenging times.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with that. I'm not sure that everyone does. I know alcohol sales are up a lot since COVID hit, so I think that's
sure.
practice, and it's not a great one.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the weightlessness. So it is one of the few times, I'm trying to think when else you would be weightless, and I can't because...
In utero.
Okay. All right.
Very
Are babies
primal.
weightless? Are babies weightless? For the most
Yeah,
part?
I mean,
you're just hanging out
floating
in
around
water, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
Amniotic fluid.
Yeah, because they can flip around, can't they?
Yeah.
So in utero, if you go in space, obviously, aside from that, there's rare opportunities to actually be weightless. And so is there a medical benefit to occasionally getting in a float tank and letting your body be weightless, letting your bones and bone structure decompress?
Well, yes, we're talking about a lot of the genesis of floating, which was really, intended for deep, mental relaxation or meditation or whatnot. But there's really two tracks. The other track of it is the physical recovery, which is why you get, Titans players or CrossFit guys and ladies, people who have really bad back pain. I floated throughout pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'd gained, at least like 60 pounds. I was ginormous as a result. My back was really hurting me. My knees were really hurting me. So to be weightless, when you are weightless, you're relieving all pressure off of your back, your neck, your joints. So everything gets to rest, recover, realign. Your skin, meanwhile, is your largest organ. So that's absorbing all of the health benefits of Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is a naturally occurring mineral within our bodies that is responsible for over 300 bodily functions. In fact, there have been studies that have come out saying that, over 80% of Americans are actually magnesium deficient.
My wife is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to see clients come in because their doctors are telling them that they're magnesium deficient and they want to get that really high dose of magnesium.
You can get that in by
floating.
Yeah, through your skin, whatever you call that. Transdermal.
Your skin's your largest organ.
Interesting.
So that, which leads to also kind of other topic, but what we put on our bodies and on our skin, that's why everyone's really evaluating what's in our skincare products and things like that, because our skin is absorbing all of that.
Yeah. I felt like when I was doing sauna every day, because with your month subscription, you let people come in every day. And so I just did. I think I came in 7 days a week.
Great. Yeah.
I might have missed 1 or 2 days in the month.
Good.
But I felt
Did you ever do a double?
I did not. You mean twice as long? A session twice as long?
Yeah. We call it the faucet flow.
Ooh.
I do doubles. Yeah.
You stay in the sauna an hour and a half?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I was doing good to stay in for 45 minutes, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one time I could only make it 25 minutes. I had come in, basically, I had worked out at CrossFit hard, showered, and 30 minutes later I was in the sauna, and it was a little too close, and I just couldn't stay in there. But I built up to time. Like most of the time I'd stay for 45 minutes. But where I was going with this was doing sauna every day and then jumping in that float tank. My skin felt really, really good. Like it felt just
so soft.
Well, yeah, and I felt like the
So
complexion,
clean.
I felt like it changed the complexion a little bit. Like it just felt like it gave me really nice skin, which mostly was a sauna, but also being in that float tank.
Well, the Epsom salt, I always tell people, give yourself a little rub down while you're floating because, it does have exfoliating properties to it. It doesn't feel salty in the water, but it is. And it's going to, detoxify and cleanse your skin as well. And it's something that I always notice with clients, and I don't know the reason for it. I need to ask our doctor clients, but people's eyeballs are really white after a float.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like
almost
it just
like clear.
Oh my, yeah, just totally clear. No red veins or anything. Just you get really bright white eyes, and I'm sure there's an explanation.
I'm sure
for
there
that.
is. It can't be coincidence if you've seen it on more than one person. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
so there's got to be something to that.
Yeah, I always tell people to look in the mirror.
What that is. Shoot me a text if you ever find out. I'd love to know. So it's obviously the 95 degrees, and that just keeps you comfortable. And then you have all the salt. Now you mentioned the UV lights, but that wouldn't be the case if you turn them off, right? Because I'm thinking I had it just black in there, just dark.
Yeah, no, the UV, that's part of our filtration system. That's in our filtration tank. That when all the water after you float, there's an automatic, and it's all computerized, where the float water goes through a 15-minute filtration process. So all of the water goes through a tube that has UV light. UV light kills, bacteria and all that.
So Brady has one in his house. I know Joe Rogan, I listen to his podcast a lot. He has one, I don't know if it's at his house. I think it was at his studio. At least in LA, he recently moved to Austin.
I know, I heard.
Yeah, which is
big news.
Which is big news for him.
Yeah, no, I listen to Joe Rogan.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's a big proponent for tanks.
Oh yeah, and sauna.
Yeah, and sauna.
And
absolutely.
Sauna. I mean, he doesn't do infrared
That's right.
like I do.
Yeah,
but
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, because I think he favors traditional sauna versus infrared.
Well, he's, just super intense guy. And so he likes for it to be that shock heat impact of, being in a sauna that's, 200 degrees. I don't want to obviously speak for him, but
right. But you can be in it for shorter.
He's an intense dude.
For sure. My understanding is that he's not in it for 45 minutes, though, that it's more like 20 minutes when it's that hot.
And that's why infrared is at a lower temperature than your traditional sauna. And for your listeners, I should describe what the difference is between the two, which we can get into.
While we're talking about Rogan, have you seen any of his YouTube clips since he moved to the new studio?
No.
Okay. Have you seen his new studio?
I know. Okay. I never watch him on
really?
YouTube. Yeah. I just listen.
Because his are super long, of course. And I do sometimes listen to his podcast through the podcast app, but quite often I'll just, because I don't watch the news, and he does a pretty good job of like tracking with current events. So
he's so great.
I kind of use him as a news source, honestly. And so I find myself watching a lot of his clips on YouTube. And when he moved to Austin, they moved into a new studio, and long story short, people don't like it. So I don't know what he's going to do. Like
they don't like what?
They don't like the studio, which I can see why. It's
wait, who doesn't like it?
Everyone.
Listeners or his guests?
No, the listeners. I don't know what the guests say, but it's very small. It's I mean, the idea is cool. It looks like you're in a spaceship, like it's in like a semicircle, like it's in a dome, like a long, narrow. No, it's not even that long because it's not very big. I think the issue is it's very small. It's a dome shape. It's very red. There's lacking some character. It's just not what he had before. And well,
everyone has a hard time with change.
You're right.
Everyone's very sentimentally attached.
It's true.
To with their friend Joe. But as you believed in him before, and Joe does it his own way,
true.
I would say give it a chance.
Oh, he's gonna be fine. I mean, it's not gonna be any issues they have. They're gonna correct for sure. But they moved. I heard him say the other day they went from talking about moving to Austin to having moved and recording in Austin in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So that was a very quick decision.
And I think it's so interesting. I mean, it's no surprise to me that Joe would float like he does, because I mean, I think of that of Joe. I'm like, God, I mean, he does, at least a podcast every day for, 2.5, 3, 4 hours.
Yep.
And all that information that he just needs to be current with or knows or reads, and then to be so famous as he is and so many people coming at him, it's really remarkable. But that guy needs to brain dump for sure.
I agree. I think it was some marketing. It was on someone's that was selling Float Tank on their website. I think maybe Joe had endorsed it. I'm not sure, but their comment was that for someone to be that loud, that they need to be able to be very quiet also.
Yeah.
Which I think is it's like a lot of people wouldn't think that that's necessary, but it totally is.
Well, of course, I'm not comparing myself to Joe Rogan at all, but I will say, I recently, I love to travel. But I am really finding the merits of doing like a solo trip, and going to places that are kind of remote. I don't mean like I don't go hiking, camping by myself, like that type of remote. But, the last solo trip I did, I went to Sedona, Arizona, and by myself. And of course, I would love for my husband to be there or whatnot, but sometimes just logistically with all the kids, it's hard to accomplish that.
Yep.
But I really experienced the merits of traveling alone, because you really power down.
Yeah.
Just because you're not even chit-chatting and talking with your spouse or friend or whoever. And I'm really seeing how, like, when I vacation or take time off, I really need to do something that's a real power down.
Interesting.
To restore me, because I feel like I operate a lot on one side of the spectrum. So I really need to power down the other side of the spectrum.
Yes.
So that I can balance out somewhere in the middle.
I think that's how it works. How long do you like to go for if you're going by yourself?
Oh, just a few nights.
Okay.
But that does that. 3 nights would be great. And that's enough.
Yeah.
That's totally enough time. And, I don't want to be away from my family all that long or whatnot. But
it's interesting you brought that up, because just last night we were looking at tickets, because I had to book a flight to Pittsburgh, and it was like $49 one way on Southwest. It's so cheap.
Oh, I mean, it's a good time to travel.
It really
There's
is.
some good deals out there. Yeah.
And then I was like, well, shoot, where else I've been wanting to go to Denver for basically all summer and didn't get it done. And so, I mean, you can go to Denver for $69 one way, and maybe even cheaper. I don't know, but the dates we were looking at, I was thinking, well, I would go by myself. And then I'm like, well, what would I do by myself. Then maybe Mariana can come along, but now I have to get a sitter for all of the kids. It's just a different deal if we're both going to go.
Right.
So we didn't book anything. So if you travel by yourself, that's something that you enjoy doing from time to time. And
that I just started doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you do? Do you like to sightsee? What do you do when you go on these trips by yourself?
I mean, the places that I've traveled by myself are, I went to Sedona, Arizona, a year ago by myself. Santa Fe, New Mexico is a place that I will repeat. I really like to be around nature. I like to have some.
That's a place to go for that?
Where, in Santa Fe?
Yeah.
Well, I love Santa Fe.
I've never been.
Highly recommend. That'd be a great place to go.
Okay.
I love New Mexico.
Okay.
Well, you've got natural beauty. You have culture, cuisine, and great spa. Lots of woo. I kind of get into the woo.
Okay.
And it's funny. I grew up on the beach. I'm from Southeast Florida. But it's really the mountains that bring me just a lot of serenity.
Mm-hmm.
To be surrounded by something that's so much larger than I am, wiser than I am.
Yes.
It just really puts things into perspective for me.
That is extremely well put. That has to be part of the benefit of getting out in nature. It is bigger than you. It was there before you. It's probably going to be there after you. It's so majestic.
Yeah.
There is something about getting out of nature. I don't do it nearly enough. But when I do, it's
free. And that's free.
Yeah, it is. You said woo. What's that?
Oh, getting into the woo, all the little spiritual, energy.
Okay,
stuff.
Like what? What are you into? What's when someone says woo? What's all involved with that?
I think kind of connecting in spirit, connecting with spirit up above, connecting with energy within, energy with others. That's really something that I'm just kind of naturally exploring and evolving towards. And it's one of those things, once you kind of start opening up to it, you really just become very receptive. I guess just to go back to floating, but floating has really opened me up energetically.
Okay.
And spiritually, I would say too. And I'll kind of get hits off people.
Okay.
Like I once experienced like someone coming out of a float pod and I was like, "Hey, how was your float?" And the guy was like, just beaming. He's like, "Oh, it felt so good." And as he said that, I literally was like, like tingles all the way from my toes up to my head. I was like, wow. Wow, it really was, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah, I got a hit.
That's interesting. That connection but
we are all energy. That's
you're totally right. It's a whole topic all of its own.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
It's something I don't know a lot about, but
you don't really have to know about it.
Yeah.
I think just open up to it.
Well, that's the thing. But with American Western culture, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's more my, I don't know, maybe it's more my circles that I've been a part of or something. But maybe I'm a product of my own environment. But don't you think in America that stuff's poo-pooed a little bit? At least mainstream? Or no?
Kind of the circles that I run in, I feel like it's, I will just talk about it just as pragmatically as the sky is blue and, but yeah, I would say like in traditional American culture, it's not as embraced or incorporated into our day-to-day lives like Eastern culture is, but who practice meditation and, have different, kind of spiritual beliefs that really are about mind, body, spirit connection. But it's really growing. And I would say that the wave of where wellness is going within the United States is really looking at your health and wellness on a holistic level, where you are looking at mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And that the three, you have to look at it as a trifecta of the three in order to really have optimal well-being. I think in the United States, we've mastered a couple of things, right? Like we're gym rats. We all know about fitness and being fit and all of that. We've had a big wave of nutrition and what we put in our bodies and all the different diet fads. But, in general, hopefully, for those of us who are like interested in fitness and health and stuff like that, like there's a lot of information about there and you see a lot of people practicing it. But really then just the spiritual well-being component. However, I think that is practiced for somebody, whether that be, traditional religion or meditative practice, connecting in nature, but just finding stillness and quiet. And, the more that we can quiet and calm our minds, the only place we have then to listen to is within.
Yeah. Well, it only makes sense that that's becoming increasingly obviously necessary, because as we have technology and advances with science, the one thing you can't just prescribe that spiritual aspect to someone's life. You know what I mean? You can't take a pill with it. You can't have an app for that. I mean, apps can help you meditate. They can help you guide you into those practices or calming your mind or those types of things. But there's no real like shortcut. You can't download it, So
but it's a practice, just like going to the gym. Like the first time you probably ever did, CrossFit or something, whoa, that was challenging. That was hard. Then you kept going back. And then, wow, you started seeing how you started getting very skilled and that you started building muscle and your stamina started improving. It's the exact same thing with anything. Practice really helps to evolve something and you become stronger at it.
So if you are going to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, for example, and
10,000 Waves, that would be my name drop place to go to.
Okay. And what is that?
10,000 Waves is a, quote, like a Japanese resort that's in the mountains. It's low key. You can like be in a kimono the whole time. It's all about saunas and soaking.
Oh, wow.
Which is very much a part of the Japanese wellness tradition. And they just have really amazing spa treatments. The people who work there, they've been working there for years. They're just really, really good.
I see. Fantastic.
So sorry, you were saying if I went to Santa Fe.
Well, I think that answers my question. If you're going to go to Santa Fe, you go to 10,000 Waves, and that's where that's a resort, and that's where you can get some of your woo that you would want. Is that correct?
I mean, Santa Fe, definitely has some of that. I mean, different woo can be, people could have Reiki sessions or some sort of like energy assessment. I've done a past life regression.
Okay.
Session.
Interesting.
Which, I don't know, it didn't really do much for me.
Okay. Huh. This is changing subjects a little bit.
Yeah.
But you had on your Instagram a few weeks ago the movie Fantastic Fungi.
Yeah.
And I watched it last night.
Oh,
and then I watched the first half again because my wife was out. I loved it.
Yeah,
that documentary
great, huh?
is worth seeing. I got it on Apple TV.
Yeah.
Rented it.
Yeah.
Hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's
awesome on all levels. Yeah.
It is amazing what the mushroom is capable of.
I know.
And what do you call it? The underneath.
Well, just the whole network.
What's that called? My MYC.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
mitochondria.
Right.
Here it is. Mycelium.
There you go. I'm afraid I'll say like a STD or something by accident.
Mycelium. But I mean, that is, first of all, I didn't know there was that many variants of mushrooms. But
did they say thousands or millions or something?
It's
at least
I don't
thousands.
know. It's at least thousands.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. And this mycelium. So I had known, because I read Michael Pollan's book, beginning of this year, How to Change Your Mind. And he talks in there about, well, is it Paul Stamets, who's like the expert here? This mycelium, which is like a root-like thread that goes out from, this fungi of any kind, but it's like the roots for mushrooms. It connects trees. And tree A can pass nutrients to tree B, who's, yards, or I don't know about miles, but certainly yards away, like not even that close, because it's like the internet of the forest. It's amazing.
And just so much intelligence. And survival. And it's just fascinating. And just fascinating to me about how the earth provides.
Exactly.
And how there's so much more to it than meets the eye. And just the intelligence, like the divine creation of it all is just really astounding.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. Stamets has this on maybe at least one of his TED Talks, which people can check out on YouTube, but they did a test where they had 4 piles of oil-soaked trash, and they put like some chemicals on the 3 other piles, and then on the one pile they put either they dusted it with mushroom spores, or they somehow planted mushroom. It was spores, and then they covered each of the 4 piles of oil-soaked trash, toxic waste, really. And after, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks, they uncovered them, and the 3 other piles that they had put like man's version of trying to clean this stuff up, like chemicals and stuff that's supposed to clean up toxic waste. They were it was the same, like it was piles of toxic waste still, like just black rubbish that you wouldn't want to touch.
Another variety. Yeah.
Exactly. But the one that had mushroom spores, the spores turns into mushrooms, that goes into the mycelium, and that pulls in the toxic waste from all this oil that was soaked into the pile. And then that turns into like, it goes down in the root system, and then bugs come in there somehow, and then birds come to eat the bugs. And basically mushrooms turn this pile of toxic waste into an oasis of life. Amazing.
Yeah. And, like I find a spiritual connection to that.
Yeah.
I do.
Interesting.
I mean, to me, like you can find spirituality within that, in the sense that you can recognize and appreciate how there is purpose in all of life's beings, that there is intention, that there's protection, that there's kindness and love and goodness and abundance, and service in what is naturally around us.
Yes.
And however so, like that hits me on a spiritual level, and to give thanks to that.
Yeah.
And,
no, I get it. I can see why.
It's a beautiful, connection when we can really recognize that, give thanks to it.
Yes.
And really recognize the abundance that is around us, that we are provided for.
Yeah. Well, Stamets says, I think it's in that documentary, that mushrooms are the oldest known organism, and it's possible that they're up to like 1.3 billion years that they have, that the earliest known fungi growth was like 1.3 billion years ago. And he makes the point that it's very possible, like that humans have evolved from fungi. And I don't know exactly what I think about that. I believe in a creator God, and a lot of my friends I have some friends that would believe the same, and they would believe in like a young earth version. So I'm open to there being a divine or a God who has created, but I mean, there's quote unquote evolutionary principles still at work today, like a tree. Those trees grow. You know what I mean? Like, what's that, evolution? I mean, basically, it's the growth of things. And the Bible talks about, what does it say in Genesis? Something about we're made from dust, right? And last night, I'm like thinking, well, I always took that as like dust from dirt, but I don't know.
Stardust.
Is it stardust, or is it mushroom dust? Because spores are apparently like our air is filled with mushroom spores. I had
Maybe
no
it's
idea.
all of the above. Maybe it's all of the above.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have? I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it on the podcast, but do you? So one of the uses, of course, with mushrooms is psychedelics, and which Pollan talks about in that book. And it's amazing that. Well, first of all, it's a shame that we just shut all that down in the 60s and 70s, because there was some real progress being made with people using psychedelics and certainly psilocybin from these mushrooms for legitimate health reasons. And then that all got shut down. And now in recent years, I feel like there's really, like it's hitting a critical mass at this point.
Microdosing and 60 Minutes did an episode on it not too long ago.
Yeah, I saw that. So now it's coming back, and like Johns Hopkins is doing these tests, and it's like they're doing tests currently with MDMA, and it's really helping with depression, anxiety, addictions, those types of things. People with terminal cancer, these things are really helping. And then of course there's the more recreational use too. So what are your experiences or thoughts around all of that as it relates to mushrooms?
I think it's worth exploring. I think that what has been pounded down people's throats and in their bodies and in pill forms and all that, so toxic. I mean, so toxic within the pharmaceuticals. And I can't speak very intelligently to this. However, the only time I guess was prescribed a quote narcotic is when I had a knee surgery. I tore my ACL and meniscus, and whatever pain pill that they gave me. I mean, look, I don't even know what it was. I just like so blindly just accepted what the doctor gave to me. I felt so ill from it.
Really?
I mean, just so ill. So I guess I'm talking about like on the pain relief, but in terms of like emotional health and stuff like that, that are, naturally derived. Yeah, sure. I think it's worth exploring because I can't understand how you could say that's worse than
yeah.
I mean, it made me feel so ill from taking just that, whatever it was, pain thing that I took. And it wasn't even like the doctor even ever said to me, oh, hey, by the way, you may have these types of side effects, which you may feel depression or XYZ. Or even asked me, do you have a history of addiction? To just heads up, these pills can be highly addictive. I mean, it was just given, no questions asked, nothing, and nothing to really prepare me for any side effects that I may experience. And that was just my tiny little experience with it.
Yep.
And I knew after 3 or 5 days of taking it, I was like, ugh, dumping those. That's gross. I feel so toxic from taking that. So that was my little experience. I can only imagine, what others go through.
It plays out.
It was so revolting to me. It really was.
Well, the makers of OxyContin,
right.
Oxytocin, OxyContin, whatever the parent company was there.
Yeah.
This was, I don't know, I can't remember exactly when this was. This is in the 90s or maybe more recent, I'm not sure. But swore under oath to the FDA that it was non-addictive. I mean, you know how good of a scientist you have to be to figure out that OxyContin is going to be addictive? Not even very good. Like, that's very easy to tell. And the drug makers know. Well, they swore under oath to the FDA that it's not going to be addictive. The FDA approves it. Next thing you know, we have people all over this country hooked on these opioids. I mean, it's just devastating. It's life-ending for a lot of people. It's awful.
Yeah. But I'm all for, marijuana, for if it to use it if it's helpful and for treatments, I'm all for that. I mean, I personally think alcohol is can be pretty scary, and but to me more so than marijuana.
I totally agree.
So
yeah.
I don't drink alcohol.
Oh, really? Haven't for a while?
No, haven't for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, alcoholism runs in my family. And
does it really?
It does, yeah.
Okay. Did you at one point, though?
I did,
okay.
yeah.
Did you struggle with it?
Not so much like struggle, but definitely experienced how it just it impacted me differently than it did with my friends. I didn't really know. There was no like yellow light.
Okay.
It was just like green light.
Really? But didn't you feel I basically have stopped drinking too. I've not struggled with alcoholism, but I don't feel good when I drink alcohol.
Yeah.
But I will if we're out to dinner and people are having drinks, I'll totally have drinks. But I don't feel good. I'll get to sleep just fine, but then I'll wake up like literally without fail. If I have a glass or two of whiskey tonight, let's say, I will wake up at between 1 and 2 a.m. at some point throughout the night. I'll wake up, think someone's in the house. Like this is very common. I mean, there's like almost no night where if I drink alcohol, I won't wake up throughout the night. So I'll it'll help get to sleep, but then I'll wake up during the night and I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
And then certainly if you go out drinking or drink too much, you feel like crap the next morning.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just not worth it.
Oh, worst feeling
like, how do
ever. Like a hangover. I mean, that is just
it's so
awful,
bad. Yeah.
awful.
Like, so I don't, the increased drinking with COVID, first of all, I mean, I guess on one hand, I sort of get it. And on the other hand, I'm just like, man, why would you want to feel that bad every day? You know what I mean? Like,
just escapism,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Just escapism.
But then if escape is, I don't know. Well, the marijuana.
Well,
thing,
idle time isn't good for anybody.
Yeah.
Idle time isn't good for anybody.
Yeah.
So, and it's alcohol is considered a depressant as well. Of course, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with alcohol. My husband loves to have a glass of wine every day. He loves his wine and beers and stuff like that.
Yeah. We have talked about drug laws on this podcast in the past, and I think it's ludicrous that marijuana is a class 1 drug. For us to view marijuana as the same category as we view cocaine or
is that so? I don't even know. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's class 1. It's the same category as cocaine, and what's the
But they can pass out all those toxic pills to people, which like put you out of your mind and all that too.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's fine. Those toxic pills are not
sense.
only just fine, but they're subsidized by the government. It's crazy.
Yeah. When I was in Colorado, well, all right, I'll admit to this. I bought some legal marijuana when I was in Aspen this summer.
Okay. Yep.
That was kind of fun. That was like my first time doing that.
Oh,
and
really?
I felt, there was like a little nervousness. Like I was like, am I being naughty or?
Yeah, exactly. But that's funny.
But yeah, I bought some gummies.
For sure. Well, I mean, it's been legal out there for some time.
They were pretty mellow though.
Really?
Yeah, they were mellow. Yeah.
Now, did you bring it back?
Nice.
Did you bring it back on the plane with you?
Well, I did. I was a little nervous about that too, but I didn't want to like throw out a good.
No.
So I like hid it in a sock, in another sock, like in a furry boot.
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I think.
And I was like, God help me, please don't let me get arrested for bringing back gummies.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't think it's an issue. And
that.
then more recently, Nashville, the prosecutor for Nashville said that they're not going to prosecute people with small amounts of marijuana possession. So it's
good. I think that's a waste of time because, frankly,
I totally agree.
How many people would be guilty of that? There's so many people that smoke pot. I had
so
no
many.
idea. Just in like suburban America.
Yeah,
and it's not like people are stoners or anything like an extreme or what. But it's like instead of having a beer, maybe they'll have a little something.
Yeah,
else.
I think it's a lot better for you. than having alcohol.
Yeah.
I think that there's, we don't need to talk about the get into the drug laws too much, but the best argument for drug legalization is alcohol. The fact that alcohol is legal in this country and we haven't already killed ourselves or drove our cars off of cliffs is the best argument for the legalization of drugs. I think it's. Do
you think Nashville or Tennessee, I guess, will eventually join Colorado, California?
I do. Yeah, I think eventually. I don't know how soon because I don't know what's involved with that. I don't know the.
But isn't this more like a religious thing too, though? I mean, is that where a lot of backlash is coming from? I'm looking at you to like give me the answer to that.
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that, honestly. I haven't looked at it from that angle. I could see the argument for that because, first of all, alcohol and tobacco is more common in like dominator.
Right, and that cigarettes can be legal, right?
Oh,
right.
Cigarettes are the big. I mean, tobacco. I mean, 500,000 people die in America alone from tobacco. So COVID's at about 200,000 in this country. More than that have died from tobacco. Tobacco is totally legal. No one's talking about that. You know how many people have died from marijuana? Ever? 0. No one's ever died from marijuana. So the fact that tobacco is legal, it just means that people have lobbied and created the laws. So it could be that alcohol and tobacco, those are common in more dominator societies, and then more, I guess, Eastern or ancient societies people have been smoking cannabis for thousands of years. So it could be that as a Western society, we're scared of that, and so we have laws against it. I really don't know, but yeah, I think at some point marijuana will be legal in every state in America. I just don't know when. So.
Well, I've heard that's why so many of the quote hemp stores have been opening around, is they're really jockeying and preparing for when marijuana will become legal.
Interesting. One thing I didn't know until recently is you can get high off of hemp. So the thing that's illegal, there's like a 3-letter, I forget what it was, like LD9 or something, and in the THC that make you high. And then, of course, CBD doesn't have that, so you don't get high off of CBD, apparently. And then hemp, if it has like what's illegal is I'm butchering this, so it's not LD9, but it's something like that. Within THC, it gets you high. With hemp, though, there's like an LD8 or something. It does the exact same thing, and it's legal right now in Tennessee.
Oh.
So you can get high off of hemp.
Well, hello.
So
I have a house guest coming to my home tomorrow, and she is incredibly well read on the history of cannabis.
Oh, interesting.
And all of that. Yeah, she and her husband started the first oral history of cannabis, because they said that an oral history of cannabis had never been documented, and that there were people in their 90s and stuff who were like the original farmers in California and stuff like that who were starting to die. Mm-hmm. And they started recording and documenting them so that there could be an oral history of it. And from my understanding, I would be embarrassed if I got this wrong, but I think she had said that the University of Berkeley had ended up taking over the project because it just started becoming too big, too ambitious a project for the two of them to do. But anyway, she'd be a great guest.
Yeah. Does she live in town?
No, she lives in Minnesota.
Oh, really? Okay. So I'd love to have someone
like that
on.
Yeah, she has just tons of, and she's like real geeky that way.
Yeah.
Like she's like super smart.
Okay.
Geeky.
Sounds like an interesting house guest. You're going to have a good time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, the marijuana does help with anxiety also, and PTSD. PTSD is a big one. Yeah. I have a friend, 75 years old, Vietnam War vet, and he struggles with PTSD bad. And he has cannabis has helped him for years. He's probably been smoking cannabis since he was in the war, and that was 50 years ago. And this guy smokes all day, every day, and he is sharp. I'm telling you right now, like he can tell a story and convey a point and communicate much better than I. Like he's with it. So, but if you drink alcohol every day, all day for 50 years,
Oof.
you're dead. Like you don't.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Yeah.
Sauna. Let's talk about sauna.
Yeah.
You have infrared saunas. I may have mentioned this a few weeks ago when we met at your store very briefly, but sauna is something that there's two things that I would love to have at my house, a float tank and sauna. But sauna is something that I had become interested in since I got a DNA test this spring. And it said actually in the DNA test that I have something going on with a MTHFR gene, and my body doesn't detox quite as good as maybe someone who doesn't have that does. It said in there that sauna might be helpful. So that's what
interesting.
That's what made me try you guys' sauna, which I totally loved.
Yeah.
And so then I'm asking the owner of my CrossFit gym,
Mm-hmm.
Evan, if he's ever tried sauna. Turns out he has one in his house. He's in there every day. And then I met my chiropractor, the Majors, in Major Family Chiropractic in Green Hills. And just randomly, like I was like, you guys ever try sauna? Yeah. Like we have one. We sauna almost every day. I'm like, all these people are jumping in the sauna almost every day and no one's talking about it. But in Sweden, apparently it's super popular. So what's the benefits of sauna? Is it becoming increasingly popular in America? Why is it not more popular here?
It's so funny how the U.S. can be so progressive and advanced in so many ways. And then now seems to kind of be behind the curve on others. But really, there are things that I think that are just really rooted in long-standing historical wellness practices. See, the U.S. is always about what's the latest, greatest thing versus, and doesn't really kind of value as much kind of time for self and kind of what we were describing. But anyway, where I'm going with that is, to just put it into perspective, the practice of sauna, your traditional sauna is a Finnish word. In Finland, for example, there's 5.5 million people, and over 3 million people in Finland have their own sauna. It's very, very common in all the Scandinavian countries, as people add a family room or bathroom to their house, people have a sauna. It's just a very common integration within the home. It's something that's also practiced and enjoyed together as a family. But the practice of doing saunas has such historical significance to it. So it's very practiced within all the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland, Sweden, etc. But let's go around the world as well. Let's look at Turkey. You have the hammams. Let's look at Morocco, where you also have hammams. Let's look at Japan and Korea, where it's all about sauna, soak, salt, scrubbing. Let's take a look at the Native Americans who do sweat lodges. For them, it's a real purification ritual and has a real spiritual practice to it as well. So the practice of doing saunas and sweating is something that has been done in countries and cultures around the world for a gazillion years. So this is nothing new. Infrared, however, Russia. In the Russian baths, I lived in New York City for most of my adult life, for about 15 years. I just moved to Nashville 5 years ago. But I always went to the Russian bathhouses there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite.
Really? Is it like you see in the movies?
My face is really lit up, just so y'all know.
Really? Yeah, I can see.
Oh, yeah.
Is it like you see in the movies where you walk in, it's steamy, and there's this big hot pool, and there's
just different hot rooms, and you're just hanging out with all these people in running water, and you have men in their little wraps, and they're like, "You want scrub?"
Like they will like scrub you while you're in there, or what's the situation?
I mean, like they kind of scare me. I once like got a scrub, but like I was like up in this one hot room, like high, heat rises.
Okay.
It was like the oven room. It is my favorite room, but it's like all stone. This is the Turkish and Russian bathhouse in New York City on East 10th Street for anyone who heads to New York. They also have a Russian bathhouse down in the financial district and some other places. But I always went to the one on East 10th Street between First and A. That was established like in the late 1800s. And there's this one room, like the super hot room. It's like an oven with stone and wood and then running water. So they have like a big well and you just like get the bucket and like it's like you pour water on you, like
really?
sweat, rinse. Oh, and to me, it's just the most cleansing. But I love hanging out and talking to people while we're sweating or schwitzing, which is what we would call it in New York.
What's schwitzing?
A schwitz is a Yiddish term.
Okay.
For getting a sauna or a sweat in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like a Jewish Yiddish term.
Oh, okay, fascinating. So at these bathhouses, are you in there for like an hour plus?
A couple hours.
Okay, because it's not so hot. It's not 180 degrees.
You have to like step out. Well, there's running water in there. So they have, maybe 5 different hot rooms. There's like the super hot oven room that has the running water with the well and the buckets, and you're just always like rinsing. It's like you sit back down maybe for 5 minutes. You're like, oh my God, I've got to just cool off and rinse. You're just like dumping water on you. And it's really cold water.
I
then
see.
that's
The
a whole
water's
other
cold.
thing, which by the way, I'm doing this, quote, Wim Hof ice plunge thing on Saturday. Oh,
Wow.
I'll have to tell you about that.
Yeah, we need to hear about that.
But so anyway, there's like a steam room, then there's kind of like a hammam room that's like a little steamy, kind of dry and steam. Like then there's like your traditional sauna, just wood, dry, heat, no infrared. But then they have a cold pool plunge. Anyway, and then there's like men walking around. They're like, "You want scrub?"
What is that?
And I just said, "Go gently." I did it once, And I was just like, because some men like it, and they just like pound on the dudes.
Oh wow!
They've got their like scrubbing rags that they scrub your body, and they just hit them, and they're just rough and tough. And and I just looked at him, and I was like, "Go gently." Just go gently. I don't want to be abused.
Yeah.
But
is it being scrubbed into the common water? Because that sounds a little...
they have like a bucket of like soap and these rags and you've got the heat and they're just like scrubbing you clean. Then they like dump the bucket of water and they like...
Okay.
But they'll like whack the water at them. And for some of the guys that have been doing this a long time, I mean, it's almost like it's pretty intense, it wouldn't be for me. Like they hit the water at you like really, really hard. The men are, I don't know what it is about you guys. You're just like, oh yeah, give me more, just like beat me, feels good. It's probably like what you're like in CrossFit or something. So
yeah, I don't know. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just dreamy. And I will say, sauna people are just really cool people. There's just something so nice. I love it. There's no formalities about it. And that's a personality type that I like. Just be you, be you, I be me. And
same.
let's just keep it real.
Yes.
No one gives a shit about what they look like
no
or
BS,
whatever.
no positioning.
We're all like, we're in our bathing suits. I mean, people are clothed. But I just look like a wet poodle, no one cares. And you're just, no phones, no technology, you're underground. Okay. Again, that's very calming to my mind. The phone has to be away. That's finding a space that you're just disconnected.
Yep.
With those raw elements of darkness and heat and sweat and water and cleansing. And it's just like so cleansing. But I always went by myself and I'd meet the most fascinating people, everything from like a dean of a university to like a supermodel. I didn't even know she was a supermodel until like 2 hours after chatting with her, and we had said goodbye.
Wow.
And I was like, she seemed a little familiar with like a catchy name. I'm going to Google her. And I was like, oh, no shit. She's like this top model from Africa. But to Wall Street guys, to your hippies, to your whatever, it's like a melting pot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a representation of New York City as well. But yeah, just like a whole bunch of people just hanging out and chill and just
that
being
sounds
in
amazing.
Is
there anything like that in Nashville, you think?
No.
Okay.
But maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe
one day. I did buy the domain name Schwitz Nashville when
did you really?
First moved here. Yeah. I would love to like have a sauna lodge.
You should.
Type of thing.
Yeah, you should.
It'd be great. But anyway, okay, so just so everyone understands the difference, you have your traditional saunas, which is just super hot temperature. And most saunas are heated at like 180 to 200 degrees. It's just super hot air temperature. For the most part, you can only withstand that heat for so long, maybe 10 minutes. You go in for 10, 15 minutes and you're like, oh my God, I got to get out. And then you go back in for 10, 15 minutes. Oh my God, I got to get out. So it's extreme heat temperature, which there's research into that and, your heat stimuli. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of research into like extreme heat temperature. Infrared, however, just to define it, infrared's an invisible wavelength of light that can safely penetrate within human tissue. When it does, it's experienced as heat. So infrared's all about the heat therapy entering within the body, warming you on a cellular level, raising your core body temperature, which is so important. Infrared raises your core body temperature up to like 3 degrees. So like I've done infrared, then went to go get a massage. They took my temperature because it's COVID and I was reading at 100. I was like, I swear to God, I'm not sick. I just did the infrared.
You had come from sauna.
Correct. So I had to like drink some water, wash my hands, just like cool off. And then my body temperature went back. Well, what's interesting with raising core body temperature is, Hippocrates, for example, the father of modern medicine, is very famous for having said, give me the power to create fever and I shall cure any disease. Raising your core body temperature, inducing fever is what our bodies do naturally when we're trying to ward off illness and disease. We induce fever. And I think in many ways, infrared kind of mimics that. It's raising your core body temperature. But in addition to that, infrared can target different parts of your body for different health benefits. Infrared's also at a lower temperature. It's at a milder temperature. We heat ours to about 145. That's really what the clients like. Research, though, will show that it's actually doing infrared at an even lower temperature than that will yield the most like detoxification. But that aside, that we have what's called the full spectrum infrared sauna. So that is the top of the line. So just know that full spectrum, it means that you're getting 3 wavelengths versus some other places where they just have 1 wavelength of infrared.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And also just to put into perspective, infrared heat has been used within, the medical industry for a long time. They use infrared heat to warm babies in the NICU. It is perfectly safe. You are seeing a lot of physical therapists that are using infrared heat to administer to injured parts of the body. They're incorporating that as part of their, PT programs and stuff. So, anyway, the full spectrum means that there's 3 wavelengths: far, mid, near. Far is what goes and this is what's applicable to you. Far goes the farthest into your body and reaches where your toxins are. We all have toxins that are packed in really tightly and trapped within our fat and our tissue. According to the CDC and the World Health Organization, we have hundreds of toxins that are stored within our body, be it the environment, from the foods we eat, from products we put onto our skin, whatever. There's just a lot of toxins and chemicals in almost everything.
Yeah, there is. It's everywhere.
And our body has a hard time of purifying them, and so we get an overload of toxins, and so they're trapped in our fat and our tissue. the heat of the infrared is what you can uniquely break up those toxins. So now that they're loose and free, your body can purge them through sweat. Sweating is the body's natural way of releasing impurities. We sweat, we go to the bathroom. That's what our bodies are designed to do, to release waste and impurities. Same thing why when you're starting to get sick, you induce fever, you start perspiring. Perspiration, sweating is our body's natural defense to start releasing impurities from the body. So infrared is what can uniquely yield deep detoxification. And that's really one of the core benefits of infrared is the deep detoxification, which they say outputs 20% more toxins than just your traditional sauna or exercise alone. Oh, wow. So, and we really see this with clients who have autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, mold toxicity, Lyme disease, even allergies, seasonal allergies. People get a lot of relief. Allergens are toxins as well within the body that you can help detoxify and purge through sweat. And actually one of the reasons why, we were granted permission to open as essential by the Nashville Health Department is how the infrared uniquely serves so many people with medical needs. So I petitioned the health department to
really.
Yes, I did.
Cool.
Yes, I did. I told you I'm a little contrarian.
That's fantastic.
I challenge the status quo a little bit.
Yeah, well, we need people like you for sure. I mean, the last thing that we need shut down during something like COVID-19 is sauna. I mean, that's the first thing that should be open. Well,
and just to put into perspective for any of the listeners, we are essentially like non-touch, solitary services that already had a sanitation practice, a long-standing one in place. So, we're not a touch spa. We're not a gym. We're really just in its own category of its own. And then I had clients who have autoimmune disease and other health challenges who were writing us saying, oh my God, my symptoms are plummeting ever since I stopped doing my infrared sauna regimen. I'm in really, really bad shape. And I just felt awful for them. So I gathered their testimonials in addition to doctor testimonials, clients who come to the studio, and received permission to open as essential to serve those with medical need.
When were you shut down and when did you reopen?
I did not shut down until I had to. So whenever that mandatory closure was.
It's March sometime here, right? Was it March? Mid-March?
Yeah, it was like at the end, towards the end of March. Okay. Maybe it was like March 23rd. I don't know how. I should have it forever ingrained or not. I'll focus more on when we open. But I'll be honest with you. That was a tough time in the sense of, it was a challenging time for so many reasons, for so many people. But having to make a decision of when to close or not, to self-elect to close or not. Yep. And I was observing a lot of my kind of peers and fitness. They were all just like self-electing to close. And I was just like, God, I'm in the health and wellness industry. And we're not closing. Is this really irresponsible? Could this be perceived really badly? Those were some really serious considerations. First and foremost, I wanted to make sure that I was being responsible and doing right by people. And it was such an interesting process. There's so much that I've learned through this COVID experience, so much, which has been very valuable. But it was my core client. I asked my regulars, my core client, and I was just like, Sally, what do you think? Should we go ahead and close, self-elect to close? She's like, hell no, you shouldn't. Because if the rest of the world had been doing stuff like infrared sauna and detoxing and prioritizing their health, we wouldn't be in this big freaking mess,
She's right.
And then it became very clear to me that who I needed to really cater to and listen to was my core client. But we'd gotten, I'd gotten like a little bit of backlash. I did.
Because you didn't shut down?
Or, when I started sharing about how I believe and how we believe, I'm in the business of infrared saunas. I really believe I attribute doing saunas for having never been sick in over 10 years. It is something that we have always talked about and have been rooted in about how infrared sauna and all that, boosts your immune health. Mm-hmm. And that was a message that we would include in our emails and just in further, as an aside, what's such a shame, what hasn't resulted in all of this COVID conversations or within our leadership or in the government is what can you do to advocate for your health and to advance your health and to be resilient and strong when it matters most. It's just all fear. Yep. There's so many positive, empowering topics and conversations and actions that can be shared of what you can do to empower your health. Mm-hmm. I am not one for taking a victim mindset. Mm-hmm. I choose to think, what can I do to empower myself versus being in a victim state of being. All of that is to say I don't have a compromised immune system and mm-hmm. pre-existing conditions. And of course, there are going to be variables to that, which really have to be very, very careful. And I say that with sensitivity and with total respect and consideration to that. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
You're talking about the backlash.
Oh, what was that about? You just you're being self-promotional and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a lot. I mean, there was more like cheers than not.
Sure.
But for me, I was just being consistent with what we have always stood by.
Yeah.
But interestingly, it was the little backlash that we did receive was from clients who had only visited us maybe once.
I see.
And they all tended to be like 25.
Sure. Yeah, not to stereotype.
I know. It was really hard for me not to become ageist during that time.
Yeah.
And, most of the members of my team are in their 20s and stuff like that. Love them, respect them, and all that.
Yeah.
But yes, the standing on the soapbox and waving the flag, they were like 25 years old.
Yeah, makes total sense. I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
When did you reopen then? You petitioned, so you got shut down the end of March. You petitioned and reopened.
Received permission at the end of April.
Okay.
To open as essential to serve those clients who could produce a letter of medical need from their doctor. And we immediately got quite a few.
So even then, I couldn't have showed up unless I went to the doctor and got a letter stating that I need sauna. There's some real medical benefits to sauna.
Correct. We just needed to have a letter from a doctor, a medical professional, or even for mental health. I mean, it was amazing. If you, what does stress, anxiety, depression? I mean, frankly, when COVID was taking place, what just kept hitting me was, my God, there's going to be so much depression, drug and alcohol abuse, and all of this that's going to result from it. I was so much more fearful of what the consequences were going to be of shutting down the world and people and business. I was more afraid of that. I've always been more afraid of that than I have been of COVID. That's
the mental consequences.
That's my position on it.
Yeah. Again, the mental consequences of shutting everything down and putting people in their homes.
Well, as I shared with clients too, if you're struggling with like stress, anxiety, and depression, mental health, that is very equally important. Of course it is. Get a letter from your doctor or your therapist or whomever. I just need some sort of professional documentation and come float with us. Let's help you out.
Is there any science behind sauna helping with stress, depression, anxiety, that type of thing? Because it definitely does. Like I've noticed it. Is it the heat shock proteins or whatever is happening when the body gets heated up and some of that flows to the brain or something?
And all the oxygen that's just kind of going throughout the body. I mean, I think in many ways, the same thing as you say, exercise is good for combating, stress. You're just getting good cardiovascular health and pumping oxygen throughout your body and the nervous system and everything, and helps to reduce cortisol. We actually have a great blog post on the website, Pure Sweat Float Studio. It's what I posted about today on Instagram.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I did that while I was in the sauna. I actually used the sauna as my office.
You were writing when you were in the sauna?
Well, I did a Instagram post.
Oh, okay.
I actually use the sauna as my office.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. I emailed you. I was like,
oh, did you really?
Confirming. Oh yeah.
I guess you can.
Yeah. But, well, it's nice. I'm kind of taking care of self and taking care of things.
Yes.
But anyway, but there's tons of research about how stress impacts. I think more importantly is looking at how stress impacts the immune system. Mm-hmm. So I had read that according to the CDC, this was published like a couple of years ago, that by 2020, the CDC said that stress would be the second most debilitating disease, second to heart disease, by 2020, which is now. Stress directly impacts our immune system. It is no coincidence that when you are feeling very stressed out, when you are overly exerted and fatigued, you catch a cold. Oh, no surprise. You get a little canker sore on your lip. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Your body's super stressed. It breaks down your immune system, your body's natural way to fend off for itself. You go into the fight or flight, state of being. Your organs and natural flow within your body you start neglecting all that just to quote, keep yourself alive and quote,
Yep.
So there's tons and tons of research that's going into how stress impacts your health, obviously affects your cognitive abilities, affects you emotionally, affects relationships, affects performance. And yes, infrared saunas and floating really help us significantly. And I will share to some people out there who are listening, if you experience seasonal depression, I don't experience that, but it's all coming up now. I hear so much in the studios because we get so many walks of life who come in for various health goals. And seasonal depression now starts kicking in. These gray, rainy, cold days in Nashville. Yep. Oh, yeah. And, that's why, in the state of Washington, Seattle, they have high depression rates. Or even like in Sweden, for example, as awesome Sweden is, and, vision of health or saunas or whatnot. But, they have very dark days, long, dark days. The deprivation of sunlight really has an impact on people. And I don't feel like I can do it justice. I'm not a doctor or whatnot, but I know this. And there's so much that I just know anecdotally from people sharing with me. And if you listen to people long enough, if you really listen, you start to connect dots and you start to see trends. And that's really what I've been collecting over the past several years.
Interesting. I saw a study just a few weeks ago where they did a survey in, I think it was the month of June. It might have been into July a little bit of this year, 2020. And in America, 25% of those that did the survey between 18 and 25 years old, this speaks to depression and stress and just people, quite frankly, a little bit losing your mind with everything going on and everything shut down and isolation and distancing and everything like that. 25% of those that took the survey between ages of 18 and 25 years old said that in the last 30 days, they did consider suicide as an option. And when you think about 18 to 25 years old, that's like the prime. It's supposed to be like your prime of at least the health part of your life.
But that was as a result of COVID?
Yeah, it's because everything is shut down. You can't see your friends. You can't see anyone. You're supposed to be in your house. Like everything just completely, it's because of the effects of COVID and your world changing and the uncertainty. And I'm sure it had to do, I mean, this has been a tumultuous year for a lot of reasons in America. I think it's probably all of these things combined, but for 25 out of 100, 18 to 25-year-olds, 25% say that they had considered suicide as an option in the last 30 days is shocking. I mean, it's so high. So the toll that this is taking, to your point, with people mentally is tremendous.
And just to, we need community.
Yeah, we do.
We need each other. We need touch. We need smiles.
Yes.
We need loving embraces.
Mm-hmm.
Our survival really relies on that.
It does.
We
it goes
are we are a social being.
Yes. Yes. We're less individualistic, I think, than we may hope to believe. We need community. Like, we are interdependent people. We're interdependent on each other, on the earth. Like, we are in this together. So it doesn't.
And survival relies on that as well.
Yes,
which you
agreed.
can look at history on that too.
The cortisol thing is interesting because I did feel like in the month of August, when I was doing sauna every day for 45 minutes, I did see improvement with my gut. And I have been going to CrossFit 5 days a week since March of this year. Yeah, that's right. March of this year. 2019 was basically a throwaway year, and I didn't go much at all. And then got back into it beginning of this year and have been 5 days a week since. Mm-hmm. And so that helped a little bit with my gut. What that helped with mostly was building the abdomen muscles. But I have kind of this band at the bottom of my belly that's still like, it needs to go away. And it's Evan from the gym owner said, it's like the last place to go on a guy. But when I was in sauna, it helped. Like, I felt like the abs were, like, my belly was a little trimmer and the abs were a little bit more visible and so forth. And what's interesting about you mentioning cortisol is I think that the gains from that is not only, although this will certainly be included, but not only from my body sweating and detoxing but sweating and kind of losing some, I guess, fat that way, but also the reduction of stress, because there was someone, I think it was the founder of Tom's, although can't quite 100% quote me on that. He was talking with Tim Ferriss on his podcast, and he had done, whoever this was, I'm pretty sure, again, it was the founder of Tom's Shoe Company, but he had done the, Wim Hof? The breathing thing? Right.
Apparently he has camps. Ice plunge. Yeah, okay. That's what I'm doing Saturday.
Okay, I want to hear more about that. Well, this guy went to a camp with the Wim Hof breathing camp, and that really helped him with, I guess, his state of mind and everything. And he said he lost 20 pounds, and where he noticed it the most was on his gut, because cortisol, where you hold cortisol, apparently is like right at the bottom of your gut, at least on men. Okay. And so if you are having stress, that produces cortisol, and that kind of creates this band of fat at the bottom of your belly.
And wouldn't stress, though, want you to hold on to fat? Because if you're stressed, you're thinking, I'm dying.
Exactly.
So let's hold on to whatever food we have, because probably we're not going to get any more.
That's exactly right. So I kind of wonder if that month in sauna, it helped my belly flatten a little bit, not just from sweating more, but from, I guess, de-stressing too a little bit every day.
Well, and you were saying it was helping with your gut, meaning just physically, or do you have like indigestion and stuff like that?
No, I mean, it was helping with my gut, or my belly, being better, not as fat.
Okay, got it. Because I was also going to suggest, I didn't know if it was like an internal gut, but in the infrared, you're reducing a lot of inflammation, and inflammation is really the culprit of so many things. Yes. And when we have an overstock of toxins within our body, if you have a hard time detoxifying, you may have an overstock of toxins, which in turn produces inflammation, and then inflammation and abundance of inflammation can then lead to symptoms. Yes. And then it's just this whole domino effect.
Exactly. And then this speaks to the fever. What too many people do when they get a fever is, or they have any of these types of symptoms, they're immediately trying to stamp down the fever, immediately trying to stamp down the symptom. Well, there's something bigger going on. Like sometimes the best thing you need to do is let your fever run because it's burning out the main problem. But when you're always just, as soon as you get a fever, you're stamping it down, you're just keeping all this stuff in the body. So.
Well, and this was like a year ago, kind of related to this. We're just talking about what stress can do to the body, etc. What's the name of it? The Nashville Health Institute or something. I should know. Anyway, it's a group of people that work within traditional and alternative health and wellness in the greater Nashville community. And they meet once a month. And the guy who owns the Foundry, a chiropractor in East Nashville, and he was sharing how, and this just really had such a imprint on me, how most of his like new client consultations, it's like turning into like 20 minutes of talk therapy in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, because frankly, that neck pain, that's from your divorce.
Isn't that something?
He's like, we can tweak it and work with it and do all that. But frankly, you're holding on to a lot of pain from your divorce 7 years ago. And how we carry stress, carry anger, carry hurt, carry pain within us. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm just going to go back to what I was saying before, how you have to look at it holistically. Mind, body, spirit. Mind, body, spirit. How are you serving those three really critical categories of your well-being to have optimal health?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you doing this weekend with the Wim Hof breathing?
Well, there is, I should plug them. It's like the Iceman, Tennessee or something.
Oh, really? There's a guy around here?
Yeah, they just started this.
Iceman.
I know if I could grab my phone somehow, I could look at it. It's like Ice, Tennessee or something. Anyway, I guess he's Wim Hof trained.
Okay.
And then Cindy, who owns Yoga Soul studio in Nashville, and it's like a 3-hour experience that I think is going to have like meditation, breathing, yoga, and then ice plunge. Some Wim Hof techniques.
Okay, gotcha.
And then concluding with the ice plunge.
Are they going to have
which,
ice baths?
Is so scary to me.
I've never done that. It sounds awful.
I know.
I know it's good for you.
I fear the cold as much as I love the heat. Like the cold really scares me because I get cold in 85-degree weather.
Oh yeah.
But I'm making myself do it, and I'm doing it with my husband. He's been getting all into like the cold plunges and stuff that. Yeah, but I thought it'd be a good little bonding experience for the two of us.
Absolutely.
And I will have to be doing like heavy like oming, chanting to myself while I am in there. When I om, it focuses my mind.
Om, what is that?
Om.
Oh, okay. Just like it sounds.
I already warned my husband. I was like, I'm going to embarrass you because it will like literally be survival instinct kicking in for me. I will have to do anything to get my mind.
But is it not just in and out, the ice plunge?
I think you sit in there for like 2.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's like an ice bath and it's going to be up to like your neck or something?
They'll have a tub with ice water.
Yeah, that sounds hard. 2.5, that's a long 2.5 minutes.
I'm actually scared I might cry. Like I'm going to be like a grown woman who cries.
I think that's a fine reaction because that a cold. I
really don't want to cry in front of everyone.
Who cares? I've done cold like turn the water all the way cold in the shower in the winter, and then go hot.
I've been doing that. We have a steam shower at home.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I steam a lot.
Oh wow, man! Between sauna and that,
I did. I really love it. Yeah. I turn off all the lights and.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
It's a good time.
What brought you to Nashville, and why and how did you start Pure Sweat?
I moved to Nashville from New York City about 5 years ago, and I moved here to marry my husband.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
It's actually a very sweet story.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it.
So I lived in New York. I was a single parent. I worked in PR, public relations. That was my career for many years, and enjoyed a successful career in PR. And yeah, I had a daughter, and I was 38 years old, turning 39, which really meant I was turning 40. And I will be 45 in November.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
That's a big one, too.
I know.
Yeah,
How
it's a
is
fun
this
one,
all
though.
happen? How old are you?
35. Yeah, be 36 in the end of October.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like almost 10 years older than you. That's
right?
crazy.
Yeah, you don't look it at all.
Okay, well, good. Well, then this is what 40s looks like. This is what I tell everyone on the team, I was like, this is what 40s looks like. Not saying, I'm like anything exceptional, but, it's, young, healthy, and whatnot. But anyway, so, and I was just kind of having, for whatever reason, it was that impending milestone, which just hit me like a brick wall. And I just was overwhelmed with fear, totally overwhelmed. Yeah, we're changing the mood here. But,
it's fun.
And I share this for any of the single people out there, the single parents. My heart always goes out to them. And I just thought, wow, like I really thought my life would be different. I'd been single for 5 years. I really thought I would have partnered up with somebody by then. And I just felt such loneliness and total fear in the recognition that maybe life just doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to. Like, who says everything just has a happy, cheery, rosy,
That's right.
ending? And that it just like hit me like, wow, I could be in the same predicament in another 5 years. And it wasn't like my life was so off or whatever. I had a very good life, but I knew that this wasn't it. I didn't feel committed, married to New York. I was starting to get a little concerned about being in such an intense city, how that could impact me and my daughter, over a long period of time. It's like always being in a state of war.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just thought I need to get out of the city.
How old was your daughter at the time?
Well, she's 12 now, so like 6 years old.
So fairly young.
Yeah.
Yep.
And her dad lives in the city too, and all kind of good situation on that front. Anyway, I was just like, I need to get out of the city, and I was on the bus. I was heading out to the Hamptons, and I was just killing time on Facebook, for the 2-hour bus ride. And then I'm just kind of scrolling through, and I see a picture of this guy that I went to elementary school with.
Where?
And I was like,
what part of the country?
Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
And Palm Beach is a very small town. There are only 30 people in our entire grade.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Palm Beach is a small town. It's kind of like an island.
Okay.
I know it's gotten a little attention with Trump and all that. But anyway, that's where I grew up.
Yep.
And I see a picture of Jim Foley, with these 2 cute little redheaded kids at Dollywood. And I looked and I was like, look at Jim Foley. It's been so long. I should say hi to him. And I share this part because there's something very important to it, which is when your instinct speaks to you. I really had a strong instinct which said, reach out to him. And there was one little part of me was like, oh, Candice, that's silly. You guys haven't communicated in over 25 years. That's so random, And the other side of me was like, no, reach out and just say hi. So I did. I listened to my instinct, which said, reach out to him and say hello. And I did totally, hey, Jim, it's been years. How are you? Blah, blah. And he was like, hey, Candice Bruder, how are you? You know? And then next thing you know, he said, may I call you? And next thing you know, we were talking. And of course, we had established between both of us that we were both happened to be single parents.
Yep.
Anyway, we spoke on the phone. We spoke for 3 hours and 47 minutes.
Oh,
and I
wow.
know that because I clocked it on my phone. You know, I'm a girl and, you know, we do those things.
Did you screenshot it?
I did.
Oh, yeah?
And I
How
then
many
wrote
days
in
or
my...
weeks after the Facebook event?
Like 2 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so very quickly.
it happened very quickly. I was kind of surprised. He said, oh, let me give you a call.
Yep.
And I thought, you know, New York City standards, you know, he'd call me like in a few weeks and he's like, no, I'll call you tomorrow. I was like, oh, that's like what like nice gentlemen actually do.
Where's he living at the time?
Nashville.
Okay. So he was here.
So he was in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah. And he had been living here for some years.
Okay.
And anyway, we spoke for almost 3 hours and 47 minutes. I wrote in my journal that night, which, you know, I hadn't opened in years. And I wrote, thank you, God. I just spoke to the man who's going to be my husband.
Wow.
And I knew it. I knew it. And what I hope to communicate with that is when your intuition knows.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the intuition is your spirit, and your spirit, just that knowingness, which has been a great reminder to me of be aware of what you just know to be. That's your spirit communicating to you. That's your spirit. That's what helps doing meditation practices or floating or getting into nature, is quieting the mind to listen within, because within knows the truth. It knows what's best for you. It has your best intention. And I just said, I just spoke to them and I said to my friend, I'm going to marry this man. He said, Candice, you haven't even FaceTimed with him, let alone kissed him or anything.
Yeah.
And I said, I just know. And then it was a series of the universe and God just being so loving and kind to me, and just opened all the doors. When all the doors just should have been shut, all the doors just started opening with wind on my back and said, go this way.
Wow.
And all I had to do was just put one foot in front of the other. And so within 1 year, I was moving to Nashville with my daughter, and he had 2 children. I had my daughter. Of course, we took this very seriously, thoughtfully, you know, responsibly. And then 1 year after that, I opened up Pure Sweat Float. So as I knew that Jim was going to be my husband, I knew that I was going to open up these wellness studios. I just knew it. So I had heard about, you know, I love my schwitzes at the Russian bathhouses and all that. Then I started learning about infrared saunas, and that people were opening up businesses with them. And I was just like, well, God, that sounds great. Like, I'd love to open up a business of my own with something I'm so passionate about.
Exactly.
I felt, though, at the time that it needed a counterpart. Meanwhile, I had kept my job in New York City. I led a department, and I was commuting back and forth to New York for work, which inevitably became very stressful. And someone suggested that I try floating. To which I'm sure I said, what the F's a float? You know, like, especially if I was in my New York ways, I was like, what the fuck's a float? Like, what's a float?
So that recent.
So I did my first float in New York. The light bulb immediately went off, total knowingness again. And I said, that's it. That's the counterpart to it, is I'll do infrared saunas and floating. I've never even worked in retail, like nothing, or at a gym. I mean, none of it. But I had a lot of PR, communication, branding, expertise. And the exact, what I wrote in my like pro forma business application to get a loan is exactly what actualized.
Oh, yeah?
What my vision was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was exactly what it ended up becoming. And in May of 2017, I opened up my first Pure Sweat Float studio in Belmead. 1 year later, I franchised. Again, just kind of doors open, and that's just the way it rolled and flowed. A client had approached me who's a wonderful, wonderful owner. Her name is Meredith Lyle. She's created beautiful space in Cool Springs. So I franchised 1 year later, then within another year, opened up a sister studio concept in 12th South of infrared sauna only. That was always my dream, was to have like a sauna house.
It's so
and then it
cool.
became available in 12th South. And that was just another kind of casual conversation with my husband in December, sitting on the couch. And I looked at him and I was like, I think I should just I should next open just infrared sauna only. And he said, you know what? I think I know of the perfect place that just became available. It was like a rundown, tear down house that I fully transformed into what you saw. So he had it in mind.
When you mentioned that, he mentioned that house, and that's where you wound up.
Correct.
Wow.
And I think, we all have ideas and stuff all the time. It's just who acts on it,
That's
know?
Right. Yeah.
And plenty of things in life that I thought of that I didn't act on, but you know what? I acted on all of these.
Yep.
And then this year, then my second franchise opened in Brentwood, and the intention is to grow it nationally.
Well, first of all, the house there in 12 South, it's really well done. Like it's really, it's
groovy.
It really is groovy.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels right.
I love it.
When you pull in a park and walk in there, and just the saunas on either side, there's a short hallway. It's just set up right. Like it's pretty great. But second of all, your brand is impressive. Thanks. I mean, it's really good. It's a franchisable brand, obviously, but it is just by looking at it. I'm not shocked to hear that you've had some franchises already, because it's really well done.
Well, I think what is so important is that, and I believe this fundamentally, is that it can never be just about having a sweat. It has to be an experience, a self-care experience, a lifestyle experience, a place to retreat, a place to be quiet, a place it can't just be a one-note thing.
Yep.
I think now more than ever before, whoever is in the services business or whatnot, there has to be a spirit to the space that you have. And I don't mean the woo-woo, whatever spirit, but a soul to it, a personality, a mission, a purpose. There has to be substance to it. I imagine that many of the businesses who really just relied on smoke and mirrors and being the cool cats in town and trendy Instagram and hot girls and men and shallow, just super shallow. And now, especially after COVID, we're so corrected and removed from shallow crap. People want substance, they want quality, they want integrity, and they want an experience. And so, an education.
Yes.
I had experienced when I had gone to other infrared sauna or even float studios, nobody presented to me what it was, how it worked, what to expect. Any educational aspect about it. I mean, my clients are smart, they're interesting people too. I learn from them all the time.
Yep.
But that there would always be a presentation and education to the best of our abilities, and an experience. So I actually just recently wrote a blog post for ClassPass. They had asked me about how to grow your small business during a pandemic. And that was just kind of one of the big ones was, experience, community, and finding abundance. And that leadership really begins with me.
Yeah, I love that. That your thoughts around the space needs to have a vibe to it. You're totally right. That's one thing that I have always thought with anything that I've been involved with or any of our businesses, that you need that. You need, and that's everything. Like it's the branding, yes, ambiance. But it's the people that work there. It's the culture. It's the whole vibe. You owe that to the people. And next, I love how you're talking about like having education be a part of it too, because that's just with the technology at our disposal now and email lists and everything we just owe that to our customers. Like, let's educate them as we go. And then the community aspect too.
And give them an opportunity to connect to something. Give it an opportunity. Yeah. The more that I share about, detoxification, you'd be like, it helps with detoxification? Wow, I just found out through a DNA test that I have a hard time detoxing. That's really good to know. Like, we're creating opportunities for connection the more we converse with one another.
Yes, exactly. And I'll give you an example, and I owe this to you. You had on one of your email lists, Dr. Reisman, if I'm Reisman. Okay. Mm-hmm. Dr. Reisman gave a blurb or something on your email newsletter, and I thought that looks interesting. So I clicked on it. I go to his website. Well, this guy's here in Nashville. He's in holistic health. This looks very interesting. So I reached out to him to be on the podcast, and he's going to be.
Oh,
and that's
great.
100% because of you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah,
the people that are attending your saunas are
really
starting to connect a little bit, you know? So it's working.
Great.
Like what you have in mind, what you're after is actually working in real life, which is very cool. Why no float at the 12 South location?
There just wasn't space for it.
Okay.
Yeah, there just wasn't space. And, to be honest, like I felt like it's only 1,000 square feet, the house in 12 South.
Really? Is
it
that
it's only
small?
1,000.
It doesn't seem that small.
Yeah.
That's not very large.
Floats take up a lot of room, and you need a shower and a whole bunch, a whole weather system going on. Mm-hmm. But it was like the perfect space. And I also thought, just in terms of like growth or franchise opportunity, there may be some people that only want to do infrared sauna.
So now you have models both ways. I love that. How many saunas are in that house? 8, 7? 6. Okay.
Yeah. Well, 5 for single occupancy. And then there's a large deluxe sauna, which can host 2 to 4 people in there.
Yeah. I was in there twice with my wife, Mariana. It was great.
That's sweet.
It takes a lot for her to sweat. It was interesting to see the difference. I mean, I'm in there in probably 45 seconds to a minute.
Well, especially if you were doing infrared every day, because the body acclimates to it. It's really interesting. It's like Pavlov's dog. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I know what to do.
Oh, interesting.
Like we joke on the team, like if I get near it, I start like sweating.
Oh,
and
I
then
never
just
thought of that.
Usually by the 3rd time someone's done infrared, it's just like the floodgates open, and it's just like,
oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, for those who have a really hard, did she sweat in the deluxe? Did she have a hard time sweating? Oh my God. Wow.
Like she was doing some squats and stuff just to move around and
really?
get her. I'm like,
oh my God.
Just sit here and I'm dripping
especially
in a
when
minute.
You have another person in there with you, it really maximizes like with the body heat and stuff.
Oh,
so usually people are like, oh my God, I've never sweat so much in my life.
Yeah. No, she was sweating, but it took a fair bit of time, and her sweat was never like mine. Like I'll just drip sweat. It's so great.
Yeah. Well, if she could do like string a few infrared sauna sessions together consecutively, it should then kick in for her. But I mean, that's not unique.
I see.
And doctors have said that people are holding on to their toxins when they're not sweating. So sweating's a great, sign of health, not to evaluate.
Yeah.
Your beautiful wife.
She is healthier than I am in general, but I'll give her that. But I do sweat more. How is business? Is it going? I mean, you had a massive challenge, obviously, this year with COVID, but in general, is it going well?
It is.
New businesses can be difficult.
It is. I'm very grateful.
Good.
I will say that when we closed, mandatory closure, I rolled up my sleeves. I looked at my 2 managers and I said, we will never work this hard as we are going to work right now.
Mm.
And
to reopen.
Just let's go. Let's go. Let's think ahead. Let's be proactive. Let's be creative. Let's tap into community. What's next? What do we anticipate? All of it. Mm-hmm. And the kind of the communications platform, the PR strategy, all of that. I created a lot of different plans and programs and everything. Partnerships. When we, just a lot of strategies and I really am seeing now all the seeds that I have been planting all summer have really
Good.
borne fruit. Yeah, I mean, we were sold out all day yesterday in 12th South. 11
no
hours.
way. 6 saunas sold out all day long.
Sold out.
Yesterday was Monday, right?
It was a cold, rainy day, but it's like boom. It was like
good
game
for
on.
you.
Yeah, I think actually it looks like, or at least in Belmead, my September numbers will be higher than what they were last year.
But you know what? They should be. You know what I mean? They should be, because this is what's frustrating. Here's an article in the Wall Street Journal. COVID-19 fuels rise in surgery for obesity. Scientists think COVID-19 is particularly dangerous to obese people, in part because the coronavirus enters the body through the AC2 receptor, an enzyme found both in cells that line the lungs and in fat tissue. Skipping around. At the Cleveland Clinic's Ohio hospitals, patient intake for severely obese patients seeking bariatric surgery jumped 40% annually during the summer. Okay, it's good in one hand that, yes, there's a pandemic going around, and if a surgery helps, then I guess go for it. But you know what's not being reported in the Wall Street Journal is how that gyms are being overrun now, because we realize that it's better to be healthy when a pandemic comes around, or that buying habits have changed at a grocery store. Like, this to me was just, it kind of reinforces the bad state that we're in as a society. When a pandemic comes around and we happen to be obese, the first thing we think about is a surgery or a pill. It's like, no, go to the gym, go to sauna. So this is,
well, and then all the restrictions though, I mean, wow, my heart and respect goes out to all the gyms out there that have to operate under these restrictions.
Right.
Still, phase 3 in Nashville, gyms still 50% they have to be.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
And
so the bars are open, and
well, there are all these still restrictions, but
that's weird.
But activity that's so healthy for us and whatnot. And I've always just said, like, if you're not comfortable going out, well, then don't go out, you know. But
I totally agree.
But even just like on the pragmatic sense of like, how much longer can small businesses survive this? I mean, really, like, wow, what a testament that they are even open and alive as it is and staying afloat. But how much longer? I mean, I feel very fortunate that I'm in a unique category, but I would be flipping out if I literally would be forming a protest. I would.
If you had a small business,
and I would support any. And I'm not like a protester type or whatnot. But I mean, really, if there's just no way. I mean, there is a way, but I mean, I've spoken to others like in small businesses or in fitness and stuff like that. They're like, and these are successful businesses, smart, successful businesses. They're just like, I wouldn't be, I don't know how much longer I'd be able to withstand
100%. I mean, no business plan, very few business plans can withstand no revenue for 6 months. That's not built into anyone's business plan. Or 50% revenue for 6 months. It's just not, there's not a way to, it's not feasible.
I hope, this economy opens up. And I say that, and I'm not like so directly impacted. But anyway, what I will share, I kind of have an interesting anecdote to share with you, because I was in New York during 9/11, and all of this kind of reminds me a little bit of what I experienced in 9/11 and one big imprint that I had that I observed during that time. I can't remember what I was going to say. Something about COVID. What I will just quickly say is what I observed is that what happened is that your kind of loyal, tried and true clients come back, but what you're missing is new clients. So COVID did not produce, it was not a time of discovery. You went to the places that that you trust, but you weren't people in general weren't necessarily trying anything new. So that's really where you saw business impacted.
Yeah, I see.
Is that you just weren't having that new client generation beyond tourism or whatnot and all of that. But, businesses rely on new client exposure and new client signups and new members and all of that. So that really dropped. So I experienced that. So for me, what my counter to that was, I'm going to comp as many people as I can.
Okay.
Get them in.
Yeah.
Get them in.
Yep.
Thoughtfully and strategically.
Yep.
I would partner with hand-picked kind of fitness gyms or something. Verticity Cycling, for example, all of their members could experience a free float with us.
I see.
The Verticity gets to offer their members a really nice reward at no cost to them.
Yep.
I, in exchange, get exposure to new clients.
Yep.
That's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
If at the very least I have a new client, maybe he or she will do an Instagram post about it. They'll tell a friend about it, or maybe they become a client too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also rooted in kindness and generosity, which is something that I felt that really authentically needed to be shared.
Yeah.
But anyway, those were some of the things. But I will share what I observed while I was in New York during 9/11. And I will never forget it. And of course, it's so much that transpired during that very tragic time. But I'll never forget being in the office. I was like 22 or whatever. And at this point, both towers had come down. I was on 42nd and 5th Avenue. I remember going downstairs. I was seeing 2 towers upstairs, come downstairs, 1 tower, upstairs, downstairs again, no towers. Now we know we're under attack and we're just like sitting ducks because we don't know what's going to be attacked next. And we needed to run to safety, run home. So my office was on 42nd and 5th, and I lived way up on the Upper East Side, 82nd and York. And I'll never forget looking around in the office and seeing 3 very distinct groups of people. You had the criers. Oh my God, this is so horrible. This is awful. This is so... They're just crying and weeping. As it was, as they totally understand. And I say none of this with any judgment. It was just what I observed. So you had the criers. You then had the paralyzed with fear. Oh my God. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to call. I don't know how to get home. I don't know. And then you had the doers. Go. Come on, you come with me. You can't get to Jersey. Come home with me. Get over here. I'll call your mom. Got a cell phone. Grab that. Let's go. Go.
Mm-hmm.
That
was you.
I was in that category. However, and I brought home with me a paralyzed.
Really?
I did. That was really tough. Yeah. And I just kept looking at her going, I'll call her Sally. And I just kept saying, come on, Sally. Pick up the pace, Sally. We gotta run. Avoid Grand Central Station, Sally. Come on, Sally. And she was just, I almost picked her up and threw her on my back. I could have never done that. But she was absolutely paralyzed with fear, but she had no way of getting home because all the bridges and the tunnels and everything, and she lived in New Jersey or wherever, she couldn't. So I was trying to help those who didn't have a home to go to. I said, you can come home with me, but we're going to have to run home. But she was paralyzed with fear, all worried about her family in New Jersey. I was like, really, Sally? I think they're fine in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Just got to get home, got to get to my house and got to get to safety. And then we got home and, oh my God, I ate so much food and then crashed out for about 4 hours. Both of us just conked out for 4 hours. How do you power nap in the middle of a 9/11 attack?
Ate food because it had been so long since you had eaten, or just
no?
It was the natural response?
I'm just sharing that. There was the physiological reaction there was a deli that happened to be opened at the end of the street, and I just got a big they were like old school deli guys and just big
that
sandwiches
sounds
and
good.
cookies.
Oh,
And
man.
I just wanted to nourish myself
It's
with food. I was just so hungry. And then watch some of the news. And then she and I both, I guess just from all the adrenaline and everything, we were so fatigued because it was so intense that we both ended up conking out for almost 4 hours,
Wow.
like hard.
Do you think that she experienced less trial and hardship and challenge maybe than you had up until that point? So when the going got really tough, you had more exposure to that, and that helped you respond a little better, do you think?
Maybe.
Or do you think it's just a
know.
personality?
I have no idea. I don't know what her upbringing was like or whatnot. And I mean, I didn't have like a super tough upbringing, but certainly have had sink or swim experiences in my life. I'm grateful that I can now reflect and look and say, well, when it's a sink or swim situation, I swim.
Yeah. Yep.
And I share that to all of us who've been going through COVID and crisis and all of that. Find gratitude. Take a look at what opportunity beckons. I'm sorry, crisis beckons opportunity to see what shows up in us. Mm-hmm. What showed up in you as a person? What showed up in you as a parent? What showed up in you as a partner, as a leader, as a boss, as an employee, as a neighbor? What showed up in you during this time? Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting to take a look at that. And I think that it's also important to find gratitude, to give yourself a pat on the back. I looked at my husband and throughout this whole process and I said, hey, you know what? Way to go. I love you. Mm-hmm. We dealt with 4 kids at home with a business shut down. He's in commercial industry. His industry just went to crap.
Oh no.
But we worked through it together and we partnered well and we did teamwork well together. We weren't like at each other's throats. I mean, sure, there were times like we got annoyed with one another. I mean, not saying we all have to be so Pollyanna and perfect here, but I wanted us to go full circle with it and to recognize what we can feel proud about through this. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to, that shifts the mindset. It shifts the victimness of everything. Mm-hmm. How can we feel empowered? How can we feel empowered through gratitude? How can we feel empowered through abundance? Mm-hmm. And finding abundance. And in business, I had to change my expectations. Because frankly, success became defined as being able to employ people and cover my costs. Sure. That was successful. Yep. And I just knew in my mind, I was like, that's how we're going to define success for the next few months. Yep. And if I can achieve that, wow, great. Yes. Finding gratitude instead of being like, well, there are no new clients coming in and blah, blah, look at the negative. Instead, I felt so tremendously honored that during a time when the world is upside down, that you, Kent, felt safe space with me. Wow, thank you. Mm-hmm. What an honor that is. Mm-hmm. And I give gratitude to that, and I give gratitude to you. And these are the things that we can practice and do to fill ourselves with abundance. Yeah. And they help us persevere through crisis.
Yeah, such a good word. Thank you for sharing that. It is very inspiring. And you're just taking the next step, right? And like you don't have it all figured out. You're just not, one thing you're not going to do is just sit by and whine and let everything go to crap and poor me. And we tried and it didn't work out. Along came COVID, so we gave up. Like you just stuck in there and didn't quit. Like that message of do not quit.
Oh,
is
there you
on
go.
my little dog over there.
Yeah.
I just think that's such an important message. Sink or swim, and you swim. That's so great. Well, now you know. Now you know a little bit more about yourself. Now you know a little bit more about you and Jim's ability to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we all
I love
do.
that.
It created opportunity to know ourselves and each other better in different contexts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, certainly. I want to ask a little bit with what little time we have left. I was fascinated by your time with luxury PR in New York. So being in PR is one thing. Being in PR with luxury brands is another thing.
Yeah.
Being in PR with luxury brands in New York City, that's a different thing also.
Yeah.
What were some of the learnings that you took from that?
A lot. Intention, context is everything. How, who, when, why, where you associate or don't associate yourself with something. I learned about the power of no. I'd experienced that in like other kind of PR agency world. It was always just like, yes, yes, yes. And there was such power in saying, within luxury, there's a lot of no. That does not fit for us.
Interesting.
There's a lot of discretion. And not trying to sound like elitist with all that. And I'm sure the luxury world has had a whole, have had to pivot a lot.
Yep.
Because frankly, I'll see maybe I'm trying to say this without sounding like a jerk, but former colleagues or brands or whatnot, and they're like posting a picture of like the private helicopter with like the bottle of champagne. And I'm just like, really, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like really, like I don't think that's but that's that there's no, what's the substance in that? What's the community? What's the meaning? What's the spirit in that?
Yep.
And I think that's something that the luxury world is probably going to have to be very careful about how they navigate with that. It'll be very interesting to see what the marketing strategy is around that, let alone how, like, retail or, the clothing, fashion industry and stuff like that. There's intention in every word, in every photo, and who's picked to go to the parties, who you picked in partnership. There's just everything is very thoughtful and intentional and discretionary.
I see. Some of your favorite brands that you worked with?
I worked with Dom Perignon.
Okay.
Which is rich in history and culture, as just a leader within Champagne. And we did a lot of their, just kind of like elite events around the world and in Miami for Art Basel. I worked with a lot of just kind of well-known like architects and designers and developers. Actually, I led our real estate and hotel department. So I worked with some just like extraordinary buildings and developments in New York and around the world. I had a very international integration with things. But I wasn't always in super luxury. That was my last, and it was a very like, Devil Meets Prada like situation with like the woman, I'll just say it, Nadine.
Yeah.
Who's brilliant, but she's Belgium and smokes cigarette and blows it in your face. I mean, which is like so against the law to be smoking cigarettes in the office.
Yeah.
But she would smoke cigarettes and her dog would just run around and shit everywhere. And she was an absolute workaholic. And she was brilliant and crazy and cruel and kind. She was cool with me, but she made a lot of people cry.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. She made a lot of people cry. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's so funny, like in Nashville, or if I ever have, like, if there's some issue with somebody or something, and they're just like, or that was a challenging situation. I'm like, guys, please.
Yeah.
I've dealt with some really tough personalities.
I believe that.
This is
I really
nothing.
believe that.
This is piece of cake.
Yeah.
But I will say, New York is great training ground. Because truly, if you can make it there, it's true. You can make it anywhere. It's so intense. It's so fast. It's so smart. It's so egotistical. It's competitive and intense and all of that. Not to say that New Yorkers are the smartest or the most successful or the most creative or anything like that. But it's just, you have all of that like on steroids while you're working to survive within a city of 8 million people.
Yeah, believe it.
So,
do you miss it?
For the first time, I am so grateful that I live in Nashville.
Really?
Yeah, I did miss New York, my first year here. So 1 out of 5 years, I was really kind of spending, I was going back and forth to New York, and I would only go for like 2 nights. And then I would come back. But yeah, I miss the cultural diversity. Nashville can get a little vanilla for me. I'll be honest with you. I've noticed that in Nashville by the 90th day, like the 3-month mark, I get real itchy. And I need to get out.
Interesting.
I've shared this with my husband to please know that I'm not some diva or ungrateful for being in Nashville. But what I boiled it down to was I need discovery.
Yeah.
I just need a different scenery. Mm-hmm. If I could hear another language or something, that'd be good. But I'm used to like a lot of diversity.
Yeah, I could see that. Coming out of New York City and coming to Nashville, it's quite an adjustment.
Yeah, but look, Nashville presented opportunities for me that I just could never have had in New York. I hate to say the word never, but let's face it, probably not.
Yeah.
It's been so grounding, wonderful for family. I mean, I remember moving here and we live on a street that's like all kids. They're like neighbors are playing football in your front
Isn't that
yard.
So
I
great?
mean,
yeah.
I've never seen anything so wholesome and wonderful. Yep. And I couldn't believe it when my husband would just open the door and say, "Kids, go play." And I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
You just open the door and let them out on the street? Like, anyone could kidnap them?" And I remember living here too. And I would call up my friends in New York and I'd be like, I'm driving and people are walking on the street and they wave to me and I don't even know them.
Yeah. 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 You do. I do that coming in and out of this neighborhood.
Now, of course I wave. Oh,
yeah.
I wave to, which is so much more my personality.
Yeah.
But I remember being kind of weirded out that strangers would wave to me. I think Nashvillians are just wonderful, salty, good, earthy, genuinely really care about their neighbor and their community. I'm so proud of how we have responded as a city and as a culture throughout the many crises that have been going. I mean, we are really living in intense times right now, politically, culturally, economically, professionally. I mean, just we're hit on all fronts. I mean, and the presidential debate is tonight, by the way.
It is.
Oh my God.
You mentioned that in email, so you're going to be watching that.
The popcorn.
I'm so
I
excited.
Can't wait.
I'm so excited. What are your thoughts?
In this corner. In what way? Well, all right.
I don't know. I guess in general, with the election, with Biden, Trump, who are you going for? What do you think?
Well, I will tell you, Kent, I am a third-party person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Always have been?
For the past several elections, I have voted Libertarian.
I totally respect that. I think. I don't know why we're all not doing that at this point, to be honest with you.
I really, it's almost less about libertarian than it is about me wanting to support a third party because I think both are just so toxic. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're so segregated. It's just so toxic.
Yeah.
And I felt that way 4 years ago. It's even worse than it is today. And I know that there are people who have shared with me that a third party vote is a squandered vote. How could you, blah, blah, which really, that really offends me on a libertarian value because my vote is my choice. This is my right. I do me, you do you. I truly don't judge anybody who's on either end of the aisle.
Yep.
I really don't care. And I have friends on both ends, and they're all nice, smart, good people.
Yes,
you know,
agreed. I have friends
they're
on
all
both sides
just
too.
smart. And I could maybe go either way myself, but I have netted out where I really am trying to commit to this, that for me, the highest virtue right now is that we have got to just start building a path towards a third party. And if you keep saying every election, well, why does it matter? Because it's not like the third party would win anyway. I would just like to contribute to the data that shows that there's a growing number of people that think the Republicans and the Democrats are so screwed up right now.
Yeah.
It's just so extreme on both, and everyone's
Totally
hating
agree.
each other and not working together. And Democrats aren't even meeting with the nominee of the Supreme Court. And on the other side, I mean, there's just such hatred. Anyway,
There really is.
it's
Very
really
divisive.
It's so divided.
It really
So-
is.
And that it's just really a shame. So, but I'm excited to watch. I've never been more into politics than I am now.
I'm the same
And
way.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated as a registered independent, what I've been reading and listening to and watching.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I care to get into that. I do fear a little backlash, but
Yeah. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot
Yeah.
in any way. I know you got to
But
go
it's-
soon. I would love
yeah.
to hear all, who you're watching, where you're getting your information and all of that. But yeah, I've
it
never
starts
been.
with an F. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'm going to tell. All right, fine. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. You know, I shouldn't be afraid. I listen to a lot of Fox News
Yeah.
and Bill Maher.
Okay. Yeah.
And look at that. And you would think two totally different sides of
Yeah.
the spectrum.
That's what you have to
But
do
there's a
these
little
days.
bit, but there's a contrarian viewpoint, because at the end of the day, I'm very attracted to independent thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Maher is striking me on kind of that independent side in
Yep.
many ways. I love Joe Rogan because
Yep.
I look at him as just very independently
Same.
minded.
Yep.
I don't like sheep mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I don't like the sheep.
Do you follow Glenn Greenwald?
No.
With The Intercept, you might, if you like
No.
independent thought, you might be interested in him. He's the
Okay, you'll
guy
have to tell
he's the guy that Snowden trusted to leak his information to, and then Glenn Greenwald worked at one of the news stations. I can't remember which one, and then he left and founded The Intercept, and he reports the news pretty straight. But I don't watch Fox a lot. I watch some clips, but I don't really trust. I don't really trust the mainstream news media.
Well, yeah, and it's all pretty toxic.
Yeah, it is. It's entertainment. Let's just be honest. It's entertainment.
It is. But I can see how it really contributes to like anger and frustration.
Yeah. I mean, as much as
skewed perception of what it really is. And the media is only going to report on just the worst of humanity and the worst of the other side.
Yes.
Or whatnot. But yeah, small doses.
It is going to be interesting tonight. I'm glad it's on. I was concerned that they would figure out some way to not. I was concerned that Democrats would figure out some way to get around it and not have Biden debate with Trump, because I'm interested in Biden's cognitive abilities, to be honest with you.
I know. I was watching some clips last night.
The clips are pretty
on Fox, of course, but I was
sure.
like,
But I mean, you can find the clips anywhere.
He said he went to a college. He said he went to the University of Delaware. He never went to the University of Delaware.
It's
or something like that. He said he went to a college that he never went to.
It's concerning.
Like, how do you get that wrong?
How do you get that wrong? I'm not
he
sure.
He had got the honorary doctorate from it, but he never.
But he forgot he didn't actually go there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's but he did have 2 brain surgeries in the 80s.
So, did he?
Yeah, he's had brain surgery, and I mean, he's 77 years old?
I think he's a good man.
Oh, he's a sweet old man.
I think he's a good man, but I do not to say that he is not a competent, capable, smart, good human being, but I don't think that he is in the right stage of his life for president of the United States, for
No.
God's sakes.
Exactly.
But look what everyone nominated. I mean, of
Yeah.
all the different candidates that were out there, young, different ethnicities,
Yeah.
progressive, never been in politics. Like, that's just what's
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me, is why was an old white politician who's been in DC for almost 50 years,
That's right.
that's what was set forth.
Yeah.
Was it a Andrew Yang or somebody like that? I could have maybe gotten around that.
Oh,
I
heck
actually
yeah.
voted for Bloomberg, though. I did.
Oh, did you really?
I did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
His personality, unfortunately, kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
yes, I would feel like the country would be in very capable hands. And I experienced firsthand what he did with New York City. And
That's interesting. You have that
loved
experience
it.
firsthand. Yang is very
Yeah.
interesting. I think the reason they go Biden is at some point you just pick a name that people recognize and put him on the ticket. And
I mean,
I feel sort of bad for him if he wins, to be honest with you. I mean, because if you think about how old he's going to be when it comes time to go second term, I mean, you just pull yourself out at that point.
Way. It's just then, how do you really feel about Kamala Harris being your president?
Yeah.
Or,
it's
I
true.
mean, really, I don't know. I mean, I guess after this next 4 years, let's hope there's just a great awakening and an elevation on all fronts.
Yeah. I mean, it can happen, right? Like I tend not to think that optimistically in general, but
it's so like embarrassing that even people, like, they're like, even if you don't really like Biden, you have to vote for Biden. But I'm like, the poor guy, like,
no,
he doesn't even have this like really
I totally agree.
committed support in his own. Anyway, we'll see. And Trump,
I mean, that's a dumpster fire all of its own.
That's a whole. That's just a whole other. But I used to make fun of him in New York, put it that way. And I did think that Palm Beach changed once he came in with Mar-a-Lago. All of a sudden became real flashy, and you're seeing like yellow Ferraris and stuff.
Interesting.
That did not exist pre-Trump.
Fascinating. It's fascinating that one person can have that much impact, on an area like that.
It just became real showy.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing he has going for him, he seems pretty ready to do a second term. Like you think about how much presidents usually age from when they take office for a season or a term, and Trump doesn't look like he's aged one day.
His stamina
it's amazing.
But you know why? Because New York City is a battleground. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Is like, if you can
you're
make
probably
it.
Right.
And I said that to my husband the other day. I was like, you know why?
Yeah, you got to go.
You know why he has survived or within DC? It's because, I don't really know much about DC, but there's a real dog eat dog.
Yeah.
Who do you know, favors, bury secrets, this, that, I mean, that's the same, the tribes. You've got your different groups and tribes. New York is all about the tribes and the groups and the favors and the relationships and he's lived in that. He's 100%. Operated in that for so long. It's probably just very much like DC. I used to think too, like people who lived in New York probably would have an easier time adapting to like, being in a state of war because you're just used to like
I could totally see that. It really is.
All the time.
It's one of the things I like about New York City, just the buzz and the atmosphere and everything. All right, you got to go. Candice, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have to go pick
up my daughter. Yeah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed having you on. I'm glad you're in Nashville. I'm glad you met Jim. I'm glad you started Pure Sweat. What you're doing is amazing. If anyone if they're in a part of the country that you might be interested in franchising with, or they have interest in the franchise, they can reach out to you, right?
Yes, they
because you have done it a time or two, and you may be interested in considering more. So if there's some people around
I get inquiries every
really?
week.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, if there's any listeners out there that might be interested in opening up a Pure Sweat franchise, reach out to you.
That's sweet.
And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Wonderful.